Today's lesson is called Plus Talk, New Year's Resolutions. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff.
My name is Roger, and we've made some promises to ourselves for the new year. We've made some New Year's resolutions. And, of course, a lot of times people fail in their resolutions because they just set the bar too high. They're too ambitious with their goals, and they just simply cannot meet those goals, and they feel frustrated later on. So, in our program today, we're going to be listening to a couple of conversations about trying to keep those New Year's resolutions, how to keep those resolutions and how to achieve them and not feel so bad about yourself.
That person who felt bad about herself. You're talking about Chloe, right? Chloe from the last lesson there, and she'll be back today. She kind of set herself up for failure there, okay? One year, she made some pretty tough New Year's resolutions. She resolved to train for a full marathon, to write a novel, and then also learn Russian. If you were to take just a single one of those things, okay, you'd be doing something extremely difficult already. So you put them all together for 1 year and one resolution. Oh my goodness, like I said before, you are setting yourself up for failure. So be more like Ryan. Have well-defined goals that you can visualize, and maybe then you can stick to your resolution or maybe your resolutions and follow through on them. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started on today's lesson. Part 3 of the Plus Talk dialogue lesson for this month is called Tips for Keeping New Year's Resolutions, How to Follow through and stick to things. Anyways, folks, with that, it's time for us to take a short break. But don't go away. Ryan and Chloe will be back in no time.
3. Tips for keeping New Year's resolutions. Ryan offers Chloe some advice for keeping resolutions.
Can I give you some advice?
Sure, go ahead.
It's a good idea to make your resolutions specific. In my case, for example, lowering my carbon footprint means reducing my meat consumption to just once a week and commuting to work by taking public transportation instead of my scooter.
I see. Those goals seem more achievable, too.
Also, break your resolutions down into short-term goals. Instead of running a full marathon by year's end, you could start by running a 5K before spring.
And once I've achieved that, I could always aim for a 10K by the end of summer.
Exactly.
大家好，第一部分我们看到名词 consumption 指饮用、吃喝、消耗量或消费，像是 Peter cut down on his consumption of coffee because it was keeping him up at night. Peter 减少咖啡的摄取，因为这样让他晚上睡不着，或是Our family is taking steps to reduce our consumption of energy. 我们家采取行动减少能源的消耗量。再举一个例子 Product commercials are aimed at increasing our consumption. 商品广告是为了促进我们的消费。再来，我们看到单字 commute 这个字是动词，指通勤、上下班往返。例如 I commute 20 kilometers every day when I go to work. 我每天通勤20公里去上班。另外，这个字也可以当名词，像是 My daily commute into the city takes about 1 hour, depending on traffic. 我每天进市区的通勤时间大约要1小时，视交通状况而定。接着，我们看到名词 scooter， 意思是速克达机车，像是 We went to the destination by scooter, then we walked around on foot. 我们骑机车到达目的地，然后下车在附近走一走。再来，我们看到单字 short term， 这个字是形容词，意思是短期的。例如 Alicia has a very good short-term memory. Alicia 拥有超强的短期记忆力。另外，补充几个相关片语。第一 in the short term 表示近期来看，就短期而言，像是 These ideas will only fix the problem in the short term. 这些点子将只能短期解决这个问题。第二，相反的in the long term 就表示长远来看。举例来说 In the long term, Jessica's wild and unpredictable lifestyle is not sustainable. 长远来看 Jessica 狂野不定的生活形态无法持久。
Okay, we got some tips for keeping your New Year's resolutions for today. Tips here just refers to little suggestions that might help you out. And, of course, you can have one tip or two tips or more. You can use them both singularly and plurally. Hey, let me give you a tip on how to invest in the stock market, or let me give you some tips on how to improve your driving skills. But in this particular case, Ryan offers Chloe some advice. He's going to give her some suggestions. He's going to give her some tips for keeping resolutions, to make those resolutions and then to fulfill your obligation and actually feel a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, and Ryan says, first of all, learning Russian, running a marathon, writing a novel. What terrible ideas, Chloe. What were you thinking? No, Ryan, of course, did not say that at all. He's a nice guy. He's going to give her some good pointers, some good tips, some good advice for keeping resolutions. Ryan, first of all, asks, can I give you some advice? And Chloe says, sure. Go ahead. I'm all ears. I want to hear your advice.
Kind of confusing here. The word advice is actually a non-count noun. So please, you cannot add an S to this word. Although tips and suggestions are countable, in this particular case, advice is not. So yes, you have to give somebody some advice. Yes, please give me some advice. How much advice can you give me? And Chloe says, sure, go ahead. Give me some advice. And Ryan says, well, it's a good idea to make your resolutions specific, okay? Don't be vague, be more specific, okay? Like, yeah, you want to learn Russian. Does that mean you want to be completely fluent and go to Moscow and have conversations with people in the street there about Soviet times or whatever? No, you need to be realistic there, and you need to have specific goals. Maybe you can learn, let's say, I'm going to learn 1,000 words in Russian, okay? That is a specific resolution.
That is specific. I'm going to learn 1,000 Russian words. I won't learn the entire language, but I'll learn a good chunk of it. Ryan continues by saying, in my case, for example, lowering my carbon footprint means reducing my meat consumption to just once a week and commuting to work by taking public transportation instead of my scooter. We've got a lot to talk about in this sentence. First, let's talk about consumption. Consumption is the noun. It comes from the verb consume. When you consume something, you ingest that. You eat that up in this particular situation. So if you're going to reduce your meat consumption, you're going to eat less meat.
That's right. Meat production, of course, creates lots of greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide and methane are released in meat production. So yes, if you reduce your meat consumption to just once a week, hey, you're going to have a smaller carbon footprint. He also says he's going to commute to work by taking public transportation instead of his scooter. So remember, it means reducing meat consumption and commuting to work. There we're using the ing form of the verb there. He's going to be commuting to work by taking the bus, by taking the train, by taking the MRT. That is public transportation. Transportation is just how you move yourself or things from one place to another.
Yeah, you get from one place to another by way of transportation. That's the noun. You can use the verb transport as well, okay? You can transport something from one place to another. Now, we also have the word scooter to talk about. A scooter in this particular situation is just a small motorcycle. Even though it's small, though, it does burn gasoline. So if you want to reduce your carbon footprint, you're going to want to cut out scooter use if you can so that you don't have to burn any of those fossil fuels.
And Chloe says, well, I see, I understand. Those goals seem more achievable too. So here we've got the adjective achievable. That's from the verb to achieve, which means basically to reach your goal, to do what you want to do and accomplish something. So yeah, those goals seem achievable. They're realistic. They're not something impossible to achieve, like the ones writing a novel and running a marathon and learning Russian fluently.
Anyways, Ryan's not done giving advice. Next, he says, also, break your resolutions down into short-term goals, okay? Instead of running a full marathon by year's end, you could start by running a 5K or a 5-kilometer race before spring, okay? That sounds a whole lot less daunting than a full marathon. A 5K, you could probably go out and run a 5K with a small amount of training, and you would be on your way to training for a full marathon in that way. So there you go. Break your resolutions down into short-term goals. So you have short-term goals, things you're going to achieve maybe today, tomorrow, this week, this month. Then medium-term goals, things that you might want to achieve in a few months. And then long-term goals, goals that you want to achieve over a longer period of time.
And Chloe says, and once I've achieved that, once I've accomplished that, I could always aim for a 10K by the end of summer. That's kind of basically what I just said, increasing your goals gradually throughout the year. Ryan says, exactly. Now you understand what I'm saying. You get the point. Aren't you a smart cookie? Okay, that brings us to the end of that conversation. Let's talk about another conversation now. Doing our best for the new year. Let's listen.
4. Doing our best for the new year. Ryan convinces Chloe not to give up on making resolutions.
The most important thing is not to beat yourself up over New Year's resolutions. If you slip, just try again.
You're right. I'm going to start with a clean slate and make new resolutions this year.
Great! You mentioned before that you'd like to cut down on social media too, right? Let's do that together. We could motivate each other to stay on the right track.
You're on. Let's get together for lunch more often and make sure neither of us checks our phones during those times.
Together, we can make 2021 a year of improvement.
Yes, here's to a good year.
最后第二部分，我们看到片语 beat oneself up over something， 表示因点点点而苛责自己，像是 Henry is always beating himself up over little things, so he should try to be easier on himself. Henry 总为芝麻小事苛责自己，所以他应该试着宽待自己。另外，再补充几个包含 beat 的片语。第一 ，beat someone to the punch, P-U-N-C-H, beat someone to the punch， 表示先发制人，抢得先机。举例来说 I wanted to apply for that job, but Carol beat me to the punch. 我想申请那份职务，却被 Carol 捷足先登了。第二 beat around the bush 表示拐弯抹角，声东击西。例如 Please stop beating around the bush and just tell me what you want me to do. 请不要再拐弯抹角了，只要告诉我你想要我怎么做。第三 I'm beat 表示我累坏了。我们可以说 We can stop working for the day because I'm beat. 我们今天工作可以告一段落，因为我快累死了。
Okay, so we've made our resolutions. Now let's go ahead and do our best to keep those resolutions, to stick to them. The fourth part of our lesson is called Doing Our Best for the New Year. Now, Ryan convinces Chloe not to give up on making resolutions. Yeah, don't do it, Chloe. Stick to those resolutions. By the way, if you convince someone of something, you get them to see your point of view, okay? You do something somehow so that they agree with you or they see the world the way that you see the world. But if I were being very concise here, if you convince someone, you just persuade them successfully. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, a friend of mine has a dietary supplement that she swears by, and she showed me all this evidence, all these studies and stuff like that. And finally, I was convinced to try her dietary supplement. And yeah, it did make me feel better. I was convinced, and I was later persuaded. And I thought it was a good idea. So here, Ryan is convincing Chloe, hey, don't give up on those resolutions. You still should make them, but be more realistic. And Ryan says the most important thing is not to beat yourself up over New Year's resolutions. Okay, so here we've got the phrase, to beat yourself up over something, which means you're mad at yourself, you hate yourself because you did not accomplish what you wanted to accomplish, or you failed in some way, or you lost something, you broke up with your girlfriend, you got into an accident or something like that, you got a cold or something, even though you were washing your hands all the time. You just feel really bad about yourself and you hate yourself. So yes, that means you're beating yourself up over your failures. And Ryan says you should not do that. Be good to yourself every now and then.
Yeah, today we got on the bus on the way to school, but there was so much traffic and we were late for school. And my daughter, she said, it's all my fault. I should have gotten dressed more quickly. I should have eaten my breakfast more quickly. Then we would have been on a different bus and I would have made it to school on time. It's all my fault. I'm so bad. In that particular situation, she was beating herself up. And my wife and I both said, hey, take it easy. This type of thing does happen. It's not your fault. Don't beat yourself up. Anyway, so the most important thing about these New Year's resolutions is to not beat yourself up. If you slip, if you mess up, if you can't follow through on something, just try again. And Chloe says, you know what, you're right. I'm going to start with a clean slate and make new resolutions this year. So I am going to start from the very beginning. I am going to make a whole new set of resolutions.
A slate is a black surface that we write on. I think cleaning your slate comes from the Bible, I believe. But yeah, if you start with a clean slate, you just forget about all the mistakes that you made in the past and start fresh. Start like it's the first day of the rest of your life and forget about all those past failures. And Ryan says, great, you mentioned before that you'd like to cut down on social media too, right? Let's do that together. So I guess for some reason they both think that spending too much time on social media is a bad thing. Remember, they want to cut down on their usage. They would like to spend more time with friends and actually having real conversations in which you look each other in the eye and you can see their body language and you have gestures and all that kind of stuff. Yes, it's a lot more meaningful conversation than just sending text messages to each other with the goofy little stickers and things like that. They're cute for a while, but they're very shallow.
Anyways, let's do that together, says Ryan, and we could motivate each other to stay on the right track so they can resolve to do the same things, and then they can kind of nudge each other with positive statements and stuff like that and constructive criticism so that they stay on the right track. Oh, sure, you slipped up, but hey, we'll get back on track at the same time. How about that? We'll both beat this thing. We'll both follow through on this resolution. We'll motivate each other to do so. And Chloe says, you're on. Okay, we are going to do this together. Let's get together for lunch more often and make sure neither of us checks our phones during those times. There you go. There's a well-defined plan.
It does sound well-defined, and it looks like they're going to stick to their resolutions there, and we wish them the best of luck. And Ryan says, well, together we can make 2021 a year of improvement. And Chloe says, yes, Here's to a good year. I guess she's offering a toast here, probably raising her glass. That's what you do when you make a toast. You raise your glass and you say, here's to victory. Here's to a good year. Here's to the stock market improving, or whatever you want to say.
Or here's to the Chinese teacher who's coming up right now.
Hello 各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。在第一部分的对话里面， Ryan 建议 Chloe 定下明确的新希望。他说 In my case, for example, lowering my carbon footprint means reducing my meat consumption to just once a week and 怎么样怎么样。好，句子里面用到 case 在这边当名词，是表达情况案例。 In somebody's case 就是表达说就某人的情况来说，在某人的例子当中，我们可以造这样的例句 Traveling isn't for everyone. In Mark's case, he'd rather stay home than go traveling. 旅行并非适合每个人，以 Mark 的情况为例，他宁可待在家而不要去旅行。好，那这边再补充两个跟 case 有关的用语。第一个补充的是 in any case 表示无论如何不管怎么样。例如 I'm not sure how long the meeting will take, but I'll call you tonight in any case. 我不确定会议会开多久，但不管怎么样，我今天晚上会打电话给你的。第二个补充的用语是 be the case， 意思是这样没错。那如果是 be not the case， 就是表达说并非如此，不是这么一回事。像是 Pam thinks we don't like her, but that's not the case. Pam 以为我们不喜欢她，但事实并非如此，并不是这么一回事。好，另外课文里面有用到一个补充单字是 consumption，它是用来表达饮用、吃喝或是消费消耗量。那这个字是来自动词 consume， 我们来学习它的字首字根。好，字根 sume 或是 sumpt， 它有这种拿、消耗或是花费的意思。在 consume 这个字当中，它的字首 con 是做强调用，那么 sume 表示花费、取用，所以合在一起 consume 它就有这种消耗、花费或是食用、饮用的意思咯。我们顺便来补充有这一类字根的单字。好，第一个补充的是 sumptuous， 它是拼作 sumptuous， 那它的字根 sumpt 表示花费， ous 是形容词字尾，合在一起 sumptuous 它是用来形容昂贵的、奢侈的或是豪华的。好，那么第二个补充的是 resume 或是念作 resume， 它是拼作 resume， 那它的字首 re 是表达再次，字根 sume 表示取用，那么合在一起 resume 它就有这种继续进行、重新开始的意思。同学们应该有注意到，履历表 resume 这个字几乎跟 resume 的拼法一模一样，只是它的 e 上面都多了一撇，对不对？有时候甚至也没有撇，就跟 resume 的拼法一样。那其实 resume 它是来自法文，它有这种 sum up 去做总结概括的意思。那其实履历表就很像我们个人自传的摘要概括描述嘛，所以后来 resume 就出现履历的意思了。好，以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天的单字吧。
Commute. I love my job, but I wish I didn't have to commute for over an hour to get to work. Transportation. Pollution levels would decrease if more people started using public transportation. Achievable. The teacher told the student that an A grade was achievable if he worked hard. Convince. Angela managed to convince her parents that studying abroad was a good idea.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you guys enjoyed reading and learning along with us. I am Jeff.
I am Roger.
See you next time.